What is up, fellas and lasses? Welcome to Mind of X, a show where I talk to you about tabletop RPGs and film and video games. My name is Felix Alexander, and one of the hot topics of tabletop RPGs is metagaming. You've probably heard about it before, and if not, don't worry, I got you. Now, if you do a quick search online, you're going to find a lot of different definitions, but basically what they all have in common is this. Metagaming is a player's use of knowledge outside of the game world to determine their actions within the game world. Now, the reason why it's a hot topic, it's because people have discussions about whether or not it's good or it's bad. Is it helpful or detrimental to the gaming experience? So I wanted to tell you guys what are, in my opinion, the do's and don'ts of metagaming. Now, before we begin, I wanted to remind you that metagaming, whether it's going to be used and how it's going to be used, is completely up to the game master. Some game masters don't mind for metagaming to happen in their tables, while others are completely against the idea of metagaming. Of course, game masters in their table have the ultimate say or whether or not they're going to allow it and to what extent. And the first don't of metagaming in my list is directed towards players. Players, do not look for monster stat blocks or for information on the manual that your game master is running. Now, I did mention this on my previous video, which is how to be a better player, basically. And in that video, I basically stated that it's a very bad idea to look for monster stat blocks. Now, here I want to go a little bit more into detail, but first, let's define what a monster stat block is. A monster stat block is the information on the mechanics and the behavior and the strategies of a particular monster or creature or character or whatever. If you're experiencing a narrative for the first time and the monster that you encounter, you already know how it's supposed to behave because you already read the information on the creature's stat block, it could potentially dismantle whatever the GM wanted to do with the narrative. And it stops being a story more than it becomes a race to meet what you know are the criteria that you have to meet in order to defeat the challenge. And I also talked about the modules. Modules are basically pre-written adventure with encounters, with non-playable characters, with challenges and tasks for the players to do. If you look for this information, again, it could destroy the experience not just for you, because now you're not going to be surprised. It's also going to destroy it for the GM, because the GM wanted to surprise you with certain things, and game masters really do feed off of your excitement and your phases of wonder and your phases of, oh crap, we're going to die because of this. If you know how it works and you immediately go to solve it, you're sort of killing the experience from the game master. Also, don't forget that there are other people playing with you, and maybe you don't care about ruining it for yourself, but in the way you approach this content, now you're going to be completely biased. You could potentially destroy it for the other players because maybe they haven't been exposed to the same information that you have, which again could destroy the experience or change the experience that the game master wanted the players to have. Now, what happens when you've devoured all that information already, and you already know how the monsters are supposed to work, and you already know what challenges the module has for you? Only act using information that your character knows or should know according to their backstory. Don't say, I know this, so my character knows it. Rather, approach it as a, would my character know this? And it's okay to ask the GM whether or not your character should know some information or not according to the character's backstory. My third don't is directed towards players and GMs alike. Players, GMs, don't make in-game decisions on what players are saying outside of the game world, what they're saying at the table. I've been through a couple of experiences in which players have already played with a particular GM for a long time, so it's easier to understand or to figure out what direction the GM or the players are going. So sometimes players say comments like, oh no, I think I know what's going on, or maybe they find themselves in a specific situation in which one player starts making comments about it. I've heard this comment a lot. Maybe you've heard it too. The comment is, don't give the GM ideas. GMs, make sure that the decisions you make are made to enhance the fun factor and not the punishment factor for the players. If they are afraid that something might happen, don't just throw it in there because you think, oh, that's how I can punish them, so let's punish them. Don't do that. If they get to a room and they're thinking, oh, it's going to be the Demogorgon, it's going to be the Demogorgon, and then all of a sudden, it's not the Demogorgon, that is cool too, because then you're surprising them, you're sort of managing their expectations. So if they start saying, please don't let it be a Demogorgon, don't let it be a Demogorgon, and then it was a Demogorgon because you changed it last minute, or last second really, to be a Demogorgon, that could be detrimental because they know then not to talk amongst themselves and not to give you any ideas because you could potentially destroy them. The fourth don't of metagaming. Players, don't look over the GM screen. I mean, why? Why would you do that? The Game Master is trying to surprise you. The Game Master is building this world for you to discover, for you to experience, for you to be in awe. If you look behind the GM screen, you're really sort of destroying your own experience. Also, come on, the GM spent a lot of time to prepare this session for you. If you look behind the GM screen, you're basically taking away the only joy they have. Number 5, and I feel like this one is very important. Players, don't immediately argue with the GM over a specific ruling or over a specific mechanic that didn't work the way you thought. You don't know if the GM was changing some things around as part of the story, as part of the narrative, as part of the particular situation that your characters are faced with. Maybe it was a mistake, and if it was an honest mistake, calling out the GM on their mistake is only going to make them feel humiliated and belittled and disrespected in front of the game party, in front of the players. This could cause the rest of the players to lose their confidence in their GM and make the GM lose their confidence in themselves. Also, what if it wasn't a mistake? What if the GM was sort of creating a particular situation, a particular moment that you had no idea that was the case? If you argue with the GM and the GM says, oh, there's a reason for that, you immediately know that there's something coming and that is related to that. And that could take away that feeling of surprise when you finally go, oh, so that's why it happened. And the third is, hey, maybe this world just reacts different. Maybe this game world or this particular creature, this particular situation works different in this world. Maybe you've played with other GMs, or maybe you've played with this particular GM, but maybe it's a different world, maybe it's a different arc, and the GM just wants different things for this adventure. So I'm in the process of editing the video, and I'm finding it very hard to see the computer because of this cat right now. Anyway, back to the video. Another don't. Players, don't make up details about your character's backstory just to gain an advantage on the specific situation that you are facing at the moment. If there's anything that you would like to talk about with your GM and your GM says it's okay, and you ask your GM, hey, would my character know this because of some other already existing details about your character, that's fine. I'm here saying you're getting into a cave and all of a sudden you see a writing in Dwarf and your character did not know Dwarf before, but now you're saying, yeah, my character knows Dwarf because my character was best friends with the blacksmith, and the blacksmith was a dwarf, and he always shouted commands in Dwarven, so now my character knows Dwarf. Yeah, it's always been intended to be that way. Don't do that. It's okay to be challenged. It's okay to approach certain situations with an air of, what the heck is going on here? It's okay to be completely confused and to have to go out of the mines and to look for a book or to even hire a dwarf that can translate the thing for you. All of those things is really what makes a narrative. This last don't is directed towards GMs. Game Masters, Don't create encounters or challenges that specifically abuse your player character's weaknesses. Ultimately, the players want to feel like they are succeeding at something. And if you're constantly throwing encounters at them, if you're constantly creating situations that they are not at all prepared for, and they are faced with failure after failure or feeling of imminent failure after feeling of imminent failure, what's even the point of playing a game like that? I myself do like to see the heroes fail every once in a while, but what brings me back to shows is knowing that the heroes or the protagonists are going forward, are acquiring something, are achieving things, are completing the tasks or overcoming the challenges set up before them. If there is a complete and utter sense of doom all the time, that could be detrimental for the story and the player's morale. Unless, of course, you're playing in a gloomy, dark, despair kind of game setting in which everything could kill you and you're constantly fearing for your life. In that case, then, yeah, go ahead. Now, I've talked for a while about the don'ts of metagaming. Now, I want to talk about the do's. What do I think that it's okay to be able to allow your players to do? But of course, this is completely up to the GM and how they want to run their games, but these are the things that I think could be allowed that would improve the gaming experience. The first one, and you may have heard me say before, when you're creating a character, make sure to consider the other character's weaknesses and strengths so that you create a party that is not redundant. If you create characters with the same strengths and the same weaknesses, there's a very good chance that there might be some challenges that you will encounter that none of the characters would be any at all prepared for. So if you create characters that complement each other, this could create a very synchronized and synergized party, which is definitely going to improve the communication and the feeling of party and teamwork that a game like this should evoke. And also, GMs, it's okay to guide your players. It's okay to tell them, hey, we're missing sort of a healer, or we're missing a DPS, or maybe we're missing a kind of roguish character. Would you be okay with playing one like that? By doing that, you're making sure, you as a GM are making sure that the party feels more complete, more varied. And as you know, and you've probably heard before, variety is the spice of life. Another do of metagaming, and this one is a big maybe. In my games, I let my players talk amongst themselves and plan their actions as a team. I know some people might say that's the worst kind of metagaming, but the truth is, the moment every single player starts planning together, you're all looking at each other's character sheet. You're trying to figure out how to overcome as a team this challenge that just presented itself. But what good does that do? You're really fostering the feeling of teamwork. You're really fostering the feeling of being engaged, and everybody will be engaged in everybody else's turns. If all players are planning their actions together, it really doesn't feel like you're waiting for your turn, because it's always everybody's turn. And the kind of conversations and interactions that stem from that really help improve the fun factor in your games. Now, those are basically all of the do's and don'ts that I had planned, but I do have one more piece of advice. As a game master, it's really important for you to be consistent with your rulings, especially when it's rulings for different characters or different players, because you don't want your players to think that you have any kind of preference. So I guess to close, in my opinion, metagaming is not inherently bad. It becomes bad when players and GMs abuse that information that they have outside of the game to bypass or completely eliminate certain challenges from the narrative that is supposed to be what's bringing the fun to the table. And I've said bringing the fun to the table a lot because that's just, it's the reason why you're playing the game, because you want to have a lot of fun, okay? Anyway, and that is it for today. But before I go, I'd like to know, do you agree or disagree with me about metagaming? Did you even know what metagaming was? GMs, do you allow your players to metagame in your games and your tables? And if you do, to what extent? Do you think that metagaming is inherently bad, or do you think it depends on how it's being used? Let me know on the comment section down below. Also, I have the Twitter that you can go to, and you can leave me your comments there, questions that you have for me, maybe ideas about topics that you would like me to cover. That's what it's there for. So if you like this video and you like this kind of content, please make sure that you click like on the video and you share the video with anyone who you think that might like it. Also, while you're at it, it'd be great if you would subscribe to the channel and click on the notification bell icon so you can stay up to date with all the updates and all the videos that I'm planning on putting out. But as always, my name is Felix Alexander, this has been The Mind of X, and I wish you, from the bottom of my heart, a great day, and peace! I mean, I guess I'm not complaining. But yeah.